Hi everyone, hope you're all well. So today I've got a video filling you in on how I got to this stage I'm at now. Now, as you can see from the title, I've got a lot of problems to address, and some bigger challenges, some smaller ones, some things I've already dealt with. Before I get into that, we're going to look at how I got the body prepared or up to the stage it is at least now. I took my piece of wood, ran them through a thickness planer, got close to the dimensions I wanted, did that glue up. As touched on previously, I then attached that to the top using a pour of an epoxy resin, and once I had roughly the right shape, I could then take my template and line that up and trim off a bunch of the excess. So I had to do this again with a handsaw, and I made a bunch of these cuts. And once I got close to the desired shape, I could then come and clean it all up using my router, just taking several passes and taking it carefully to avoid any tear out. And once I was happy with the body shape, I would then use a round over bit and put a round over on the front and the back of the body. And after that, I went and did the belly carve. Another nice straightforward job, just using the Shinto rust to start out with. Next here I'll show you how I actually made my own pickup templates. And when it comes to humbucker pickups, I mean everyone uses the same dimensions, and I could always just buy one of these templates, but I did it my way with what I had. So I've made a pickup template, humbucker pickup template, which has worked perfectly. And then I was on to routing some cavities. So I was actually hoping to get my hands on a drill press, which hasn't panned out, at least not at this stage. However, I have a powerful corded drill, which with the Forstner bits I've got my hands on and been lent, I could take away a lot of that material comfortably. And then stick down templates for the pickup cavities. And for the control cavity, with this style of guitar, the control cavity is on the top, and it was just a matter of measuring that out and drilling again, and then using 2 straight line templates to clean up the edges. So that all went relatively smoothly. I then actually came to do my neck pocket template and my neck pocket cavity after sticking down the pieces a second time. I clamped down the neck and put on my MDF template pieces, but the fit wasn't tight enough, so I actually took that off, and second time round I had a nice tight fit. So I went and took that material away, routed that out, and eventually brought it down to the right depth. And I have at this stage an excellent neck joint that I'm really happy with. The neck is really secure in this pocket. However, now we get on to the first of the issues. So this one caught me way off guard, and this is nothing to do with my error for once. So I actually got down to the final depth in this cavity and discovered that there was a crevice in the wood. And I could just fill that because at this stage, sure, it's hidden. However, I'll show you with the neck in what's going to happen. Because I'm doing a set neck, the intention is to have a really nice carve in here at the back where the access is. So that spot there will be within my carve, and I'm very nervous now what's going to happen if I don't address this before I get to the stage where I glue the neck. So I haven't decided exactly how I'm going to tackle that one. I could fill it here, but it's going to look a bit out of place. If I'm using Titebond and dust, it's going to give a different look to whether I use super glue and dust, or I could try to put in a spline or a piece of wood, but I don't have the best experience with that. I'm sure I could come up with a way, but I'm not sure if that's the right approach, because it would stand out like a sore thumb, I think. So I haven't decided yet. Anyway, there's heaps more to talk about. So just with regards to the neck, since that was the most recent thing I did, with the neck, I was hoping to get my hands on a drill press, because then I could use a sanding attachment like this and have the effect of a spindle sander, which then I could use a fence with to give me a perfectly thickness back of the headstock, and that would also give me the first half of my volute. If I'm going to try to do this with a handsaw, it's going to be very, 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 if I'm going to try this with a hand drill, it's going to be very challenging to keep it square with the front face of the headstock and get that consistent thickness. So also with the volute, I don't have too many issues with the thought of carving this without any really nice rasps or files. I can just do it with whatever I can get my hands on. some rough sandpaper, but that's going to be a tricky one. So I might invest in some nicer rasps and files. It's hard to decide at this stage yet where that ranks in the priorities. The fret markers that I talked about in my previous video, I wasn't totally satisfied with them, so I ended up drilling them out and redoing them, and I knew that would be a risky job when it came to putting more resin into the fretboard after it had already been sanded down through the grits. So, but I knew it just had to be done. The fret markers were, the resin had cured just a tiny bit squidgy, which is really challenging when you're doing small amounts, because the rounding error with your measurements is going to be can be a little bit off. But with that said, after cleaning it up with a razor blade, I got a finish I was really happy with. So my new fret markers are looking really nice, even before I apply any oil to the fretboard. So I'm not sure how it'll show up under this light, but just with the tiniest drop of water I'm getting quite bright, shiny fret markers. Keeping with the neck, there's still one more challenge I have ahead of me, and that's drilling the tuner holes, because without a drill press, to get those holes perfectly straight will also be very challenging. I haven't decided exactly how I'm going to go about that either yet. I think I'm just going to have to drill small pilot holes and be very slow and careful with them, and until I get those perfectly lined up, I might have to come back and fill with dowel a few times, or toothpicks or something, but I think that should do the job eventually. It'll just take extra care. My leveling beam from Crimson has also arrived, so I have the option to do the fretwork when I feel like it. Now, getting a bit deeper into the other issues I have, you may have noticed when I was shaping the body, there were a few spots that had resin on them, and I don't really know how that's come to pass. Everything was lined up pretty well, but sanding these outer edges is something I've spent a fair bit of time on already, and there's still a bit of a obvious amount of resin soaked into the wood in certain spots. Now, I knew from the get-go this was a potential possibility that I'd have to tackle, and I feel as though at this stage, if I do go ahead and end up finishing all the wood parts with tung oil, the look of the wood natural with tung oil versus the wood next to it with some resin does actually blend together relatively well, so I'm not too fussed at this stage. I think I'll be able to sort that. Also with the sides, from the start I knew I'd have this exposed wood from the top, and I wasn't sure whether it would look better to stain that in matching within the top, or if I leave it natural and have that extra contrast. So I've been looking at it a little bit on and off the last few days, and at this point in time I'm thinking I might stain it, but then I'm not 100% certain if there might be some sections that don't take the stain because of the resin. Once I sand everything up to 320, I can then make that decision later on down the line. Speaking of sanding and finishing, I've also got my hands on a resin polish now. The finish for the top will be sanded to 1200 and then polished. I sanded through the grits to get the finish I have now, but there are still blemishes, so I'll need to go back through the grits again. I just want to see roughly what's going to look like, and so I can do a test with the polish. On to potentially my biggest cause for concern at the moment. Essentially, when I was pouring clear resin onto the top, at some point the resin had leaked through the seal I had, and I had a lot of resin on the back of the body. I wasn't too stressed about that at the time because I knew I was going to be still taking about an extra 2-3 mil off that thickness of the body off the back. However, in one spot I had a huge tear out when I took off the plywood that was stuck with resin to the body. It happens to be right in the middle of the back. I considered a lot of different options in terms of how I can cover that. As you can see, there's a bit of green resin in there at the moment. I just wanted to test that, see how it blends together. But I always have leftover bits every time I do a mix. So one option I've considered is a little piece that I put a Great Guitar Build Off and signature onto, and I'm wondering if that will look a bit off. So this is a piece of flame maple that I've got almost to the shape of the largest Forstner bit I have, which is what I'll drill out the cavity with. And one more minor thing, which I anticipated from the beginning. As soon as I decided I was going to use a pick guard, I knew this would be an issue. Because I've chosen to go with 24 frets and access for the truss rod at this end of the neck, my neck extends further this way than a standard Telecaster design would. So if I wanted to use a pick guard, it was never going to perfectly line up. And as you can see, I'm going to have to trim away some material here. I'm also having to extend the bridge pickup cavity, which for some reason was not actually wide enough to accommodate the pickup ring I'm using on the bridge. But again, this is just acrylic and it'll be super easy to deal with. Same applies to the control cavity, where this was shaped for 32mm wide control cavity cover, and mine happens to be 34mm, so I've got that extra millimeter on all sides to trim away, but that should be no major whatsoever. Now I think the last one I wanted to address was my wiring in the body. So before sticking the top on, I decided to create a channel using my 6mm router bit that I used, the same one for the truss rod cavity. Just do some straight lines in the body that I can run the wires through. So going through from the neck pickup to the bridge pickup to the cavity. And what's happened is, after sticking the top on, even though I stuck it down this way with the body on top and the top below, the amount of resin that I put in was just fractionally too much, and it squeezed into those cavities that I was going to use for the wiring. So I'll have to go the traditional way and drill some holes with a long drill bit, which I don't have. So that was something I probably never could have avoided, and it's going to be a high priority in getting some long drill bits, not only for the wiring through to the cavity from the pickups, but also the bridge ground wire. I'm going to have to get a smaller long drill bit, or find some way of holding it within a tube or something, see what I can find lying around. So I think that is the extent of all the problems on my table at the moment. As I've described, most of them are not going to be too much of a struggle to resolve, but some of them are a little bit annoying in some cases due to my own mistakes. So I guess we'll see in the next few weeks how that all comes together. Thanks for sticking with me, and if anyone has any suggestions, obviously fire away. I have some faith in myself to resolve these things. So let me know what you think, and thanks for watching, and catch you in another one soon. That sounds stupid.